Welcome to the conference. Please enter the conference ID, followed by the pound key. Thank you. Guest ID accepted.
Hello? 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 Uh-oh. Hello? Hello? Hello?
The moderator has left the conference.
Hello.
Hi, there you are. How are you?
Wicked. I'm really well, thanks.
You sound really well. I'm glad to hear your voice. You sound very, very excited and happy.
I am
Okay.
excited and happy, and I've had my morning walk, and I've had my morning coffee, and
Yay.
so
Good,
good
so we're
start to the
ready.
day.
Good. Okay, great. So before I get started,
Yeah.
how do you want me to introduce you? Because I know you do sales training, NLP, all these different things. Sales coach, success coach. How do you want me to introduce you? I guess I should have asked that before.
Communication specialist.
Communication specialist. I love that. Okay. So communication specialist from Sydney, Australia.
Yes. And I have a very eclectic background, as you probably discovered. But I've invested, probably 2 small investment properties in professional training over the years, all around thinking tools and how can we improve performance through improved thinking.
I like that. I did, and I actually had some extra questions. I think I will kind of switch out some questions based on
Sure.
kind of what I was reading off of your website, and because I just think it's totally relevant, and it kind of will gives us some additional information that'll be of really high value. So,
no problem.
So you'll know obviously how to answer those. So okay, all right. So I'll go ahead and get started with the recording. Let me go ahead and get myself and just take a drink of water.
Me too.
Get ourselves all in the right space. Okay, so all right, so hello everybody and welcome to How to Prosper Through Effective Communication. My name is Sharessa Huffman. I am here with Lindsey Marshall. He is from Sydney, Australia. I have the pleasure of speaking with him. He has so graciously offered his time. He is a communication specialist, innovative and creative thinker, and somebody that has a lot of value to offer on how to really enhance your life, enhance your thinking, with proper communication. So I'm going to let him tell us a little bit about himself, and so that we can just get right into it and just start going over all this really, really good content. So, Lindsey, I'll let you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to where you are today.
Okay, well, thanks very much, and hello, everyone. Welcome from down under, basically. As you just heard, I have a very broad and diverse background, and in particular focusing in on communication skills. Now, over the years, I've always been fascinated how some people can communicate effectively. Other people seem to struggle to do so. And as a result of that, some people get what they want in life, other people don't. And so I've been fascinated for, probably close to 20 years now, if the truth be told, in how you can change your performance simply by changing the way you think about a situation. And so over the years, I've explored pretty much every thinking tool there is on the market, specifically interested in how do you change performance. And so, from my profile, I've done extensive studies into neuro-linguistic programming. Prior to that, I've also been educated and I'm a certified trainer in all of the de Bono thinking technology, which is worth a look if you haven't explored it yet. And all of the time I've had in the back of my mind, how can you improve performance through change in thinking? So when the invitation came to share a little in this forum, I thought, wow, what a great opportunity to give back to the world community in terms of there are so many people out there today who are struggling that could really change their reality if they just changed the way they thought about things. And so I thought, yes, this is a great opportunity to give some insights and share some tips and tricks that I think hopefully you'll all find very useful.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you for that. And so my first question for you is how has being a communication specialist and coach, how has that, first of all, enhanced your life and the lives around the lives of others around you? Because I know from my personal experience, I've experienced a massive change in myself and those close. So how is that for you?
Well, absolutely. A phenomenal change. And it's interesting because the application of communication for me has actually stemmed all the way back to my training as an opera singer. Again, I told you I had an eclectic background. I'm actually a certified opera singer. I've done 4 shows in the Sydney Opera House, believe it or not.
Wow.
But my real passion in life has always been helping people learn. And when I was an opera singer, I actually had this issue, and that is something that probably many of the people listening in have experienced at some stage in their life, and that's performance anxiety. And there's nothing quite like standing up in front of 2,500 people wondering if something's going to come out of your mouth. And so I had this issue, and I was introduced to the Neuro-Linguistic Programming Toolkit, NLP, as a vehicle for actually changing that state. And so now when I'm on stage, and I do try to get out still once every year, I have a very large family. I have 8 boys, and so I don't get much time for rehearsal these days. But what I love about the NLP, and in particular how this has impacted my life personally, is when I sing now, I experience nothing but pure joy and exhilaration. So all of that performance anxiety has been eradicated. Once I learned how to do that for myself, well, then I thought, wow, what else could I do with this? I'm a corporate training consultant. I'm out there teaching people how to improve their businesses. And, I have a specialist bent in the business development space and sales. Could I apply the same principles to that environment? And sure enough, what I found was when you started to apply some of these fundamental principles of state of mind, if you will, to your communication with clients, guess what? All of a sudden, you don't have to sell things so much anymore because people start buying. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, that's pretty awesome because I've experienced that myself, and like being a top performer in a sales office, but nobody else really knows how to do it. Nobody else is really making as many sales. And it's just, it's kind of, I don't know. It's like it's like these different ways of thinking can kind of shift that. Just push the performance can change all that when you think it's just only a few people are good at sales.
And that's really interesting because one of the specialist applications I've perfected down under is actually described as modeling top performance. So I use the skills in my portfolio to actually go in and have a look at that high flyer. And, if you think about the typical sales organization, there's usually a standard distribution. You've got your one superstar who's always out in front. You've got your 80% Joe average citizens, and you've got your one poor performer, right?
Absolutely.
And so the question I always ask management teams and people in this space is, hey, if your 80% Joe average citizens actually knew what to do differently, don't you think they would do it? And so clearly there is a knowledge gap, a skill gap in that population. And the really curious thing about that, though, is if you go to that one-star performer, you were absolutely right. If I actually interview the top performer and say, what is it that you do that makes the difference, you see that blank look come over their faces.
Yeah.
Because they don't actually know. They just know that if they do what they do every day, they come out number 1 on the leaderboard every month.
Right.
And so often the person that's most resistant to change in organizations is actually the top performer because they don't want to destabilize what they're doing. They don't know what it is specifically that they do that makes the difference, but they know if they keep doing what they're doing, they're always coming out on top. And so that's something to look out for too.
Absolutely. And so I noticed on your, on your site how you were saying that you can optimize like a personal sales state. And I can relate to that. So what is a state, the state that you have to be in to be able to influence a decision, on a sales call, or, just in everyday life? How do you do that effectively? Like, because there's a difference. It's a different state of mind you have to be in.
Absolutely right. Well, we actually use a very clever little trick, and that is, have you ever had that experience where you've caught a whiff of someone's aftershave or perfume and you've been transported back to another time and place? Mm-hmm. That's what's happening there is your state internally is being changed by a memory. And so what we do is we tap into a person's individual memories of things and times where they have experienced the qualities that they need in order to be successful in any particular environment. It's not just limited to sales. I have, for my opera singing, a state I call my star state, which is the state I go to when I'm on stage. When I'm in training, I have a different state that I apply, which is a much more collaborative state and a much quieter mind, where I'm receiving lots more information than I would normally do. And so what we do is we actually create what's called a circle of excellence, is the jargon for it, which is a way of manufacturing a state at will and actually activating it when you need to. And I'll give you a real-life example. There was a woman I did some individual coaching with a number of years ago, and she had been in an abusive relationship, heaven forbid, for 23 years.
Wow.
And she had drawn a line in the sand, and they had actually split, but now she had to go through the divorce settlement. And she was terrified that she would fall apart when she met her former partner in a court of law. So we created for her a high resource state, and she called it her cool, calm, and collected state, which was basically a way of making sure that she didn't crumble under pressure. Now, if you think about the application of that, it can be in anywhere that you want high performance. It could be on the sports field, it could be in business development, it could be, in her case, in a high pressure interview situation. Anyway, the interesting thing about that story is when she faced him, she activated her state, which is literally like pressing a button, and he realized he had lost his power base, and as a result of that, he started ranting and raving, which was completely out of character. But it turned out really well for her, so I was really delighted with that. So this is very tangible state management at a grassroots level that people can switch on and switch off.
Absolutely, that's amazing, because I've been there where it's just like you're in this state, and it's like everything flows, the conversation is easy, nothing feels uncomfortable about the whole situation, and it's almost like when you access that more, when you get better and better at accessing that, like life just flows. It's just there's an ease and effort about life, and it's just an amazing feeling to have. And so I just
if you think about elite sports people, they have a terminology where they're in the zone, and when they're in that space, they're in one of these high performance states where it doesn't matter what the opposition throws up at them, they seem to be able to read it and counter it effectively. And so, having this at our disposal is brilliant because, I can change your performance just simply by inviting you to remember one of those times when you've experienced what you just described. And so if you imagine you were, and I know there's a bit of a sales focus on here, if you were a salesperson interested in performance improvement in yourself, we've all probably had one or two of those experiences where everything just worked perfectly for us. I was reading the customer well, they were asking the right questions, I had the right information, we were in deep rapport, it was all flowing, as you were saying, easily. If before you go into your next sales appointment, you just sit in the car for a moment and you close your eyes and you drift back in time to that time and place where you experienced that quality of communication, guess what happens to your neurology, the nerve pathways in your body? They actually remember and wake up. And what that does for you is it optimizes your state going in, which gives you the best possible chance of coming out of there with a sale.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really interesting, because I'm going to, my business coach is having the zone event, and that's actually what she's teaching about, is how to get into the zone, high performance athletes, just being in the zone and what that really means, and it's a state of mind. And that if more people realize that they can step into that at any time, that they would enhance their lives pretty much like instantly. It doesn't take a
dramatic
very long time.
It's absolute.
Yeah. And so that leads me to my next question. So since like communication is a part of our everyday life, and in business, relationships are everything, what are some powerful rapport building techniques that can be used to instantly and powerfully connect with someone, either in person or over the phone?
Okay, well, I'm sure you've got lots of people who will be talking over the 21 days about face-to-face interactions. As an opera singer, one of my specialties is actually about tonality. Obviously, as an opera singer, you listen to the world differently. And so I've crafted a messaging system which is all about building what I call auditory rapport for people who don't have the privilege of face-to-face. So if you have to deal with people on the telephone, for example, how are you going to read their body language in order to, assimilate and reflect back and mirror appropriate body language? You can't see them. How would you do that? And so the question then is, over the phone, how can I actually do that? With the auditory rapport, what you need to do is actually listen to the quality of the sound, the rate of speech, the volume of them, and then start matching those qualities. So, for example, have you ever spoken to someone who comes from the far country, a rural environment? If I were to just ask you a quick question, how do they speak differently to us in the city? What are some of the qualities that you'd notice?
Well, more fast-paced. Just seem to be more, busier. Just have a busier energy.
Absolutely right. Yeah. In the city, people move. It's that. Come on, fast paced. And when you go to the country, well, these are people who are used to watching things grow, and that takes time. And people from the country tend to speak much more slowly. And so if I was selling to you and you happened to be speaking with this voice, and I came in with my high-pitched, zingy, 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 come on, well, let's do a deal type tonality, I'm breaking what's called auditory rapport. The chance of that going somewhere positive, about 0. So what we can do, there are a couple of things. The first thing is listen to the rhythm in the person's voice on the other side of the phone. And match, how fast are they speaking? Are they speaking quite quickly like this? Or are they a little slower in their deliberations? And, if you think about someone even just answering the phone, they might say, hello? Da-dum? Da-dum? What would your response to that be? Hello. Same rhythm. Da-dum. Different tonality, but same rhythm, right? Is this making sense?
Absolutely.
So a simple thing that you can do when you don't have the privilege of face-to-face is match the rhythm and the speed with which the other person is speaking. Now, pardon me, the next thing, which is a really incredibly powerful vehicle for building rapport over the telephone, is to match breathing patterns. Now, what does that mean? Goodness, I can't see that person. How do I know when they breathe? Can you pick it?
Absolutely.
How would you guess what somebody's breathing pattern is? Well, it's quite simple. In a normal conversation, I'm talking for a little while, and then when I breathe, you're going to talk for a little while. So if you listen to the way the person is talking and try and pick up on their breathing pattern, if you match that breathing pattern, you drop into a very deep state of physiological rapport. Now, what does that mean? It means that my body and your body start to communicate in a different way, tonally, in our speech. And I've done some research in multinational contact centers. And the fascinating thing is, if you put two people up the front of a room with a screen between them so they can't actually see each other, just like they would be in a contact center, and you get them to have a conversation, and for them to apply what I've just taught you, which is match speed and match breathing patterns, the most interesting thing happens. And that is that the two people, even though they can't see each other, drop into physical rapport and they assume similar body language. How's that?
Interesting.
It's really out there. No one can explain why this happens. All we know is when you're in rapport with someone at that level on the telephone, your physicality almost mirrors the other person. So if one person starts jiggling their foot, the other person on the other side starts jiggling their foot. Right? So there are a couple of little tips and tricks for a very niche kind of application, which is rapport building over the telephone. Now, you can actually apply this, but please do this with caution. You can apply the match breathing patterns face-to-face as well. Have you ever been at a dinner party or a cocktail party and there's someone on the far side of the room you really want to communicate with, but you just can't get to them? It's too crowded. Try this little exercise. What you can do is you can watch them across the room speaking, and every time they stop speaking, breathe in, which is when they're breathing in, and get into the same breathing pattern as them across the room, and guess what happens in about 2 minutes?
They notice.
Person, they'll turn around and they'll look at you. Their unconscious mind
That's crazy.
has picked up someone has just dropped into sync with them, and as a result of that, irresistibly, they are drawn to look at you. Now, please do not try this on public transport. We don't want you picking up any strays.
Oh gosh, that would be terrible.
But so this is the example expressed in a face-to-face environment, exactly the same principle, just simply matching breathing patterns will actually build a very deep style of rapport.
Wow, interesting.
Fascinating,
that explains why some people are just amazing at instantly commanding a room. And they have that down packed, and so I've noticed that. So it's really, really cool to to know that other people can articulate that. It's really neat and very valuable to know. So I know that I also read too that you had on your website that there are some behaviors of effective communicating or effective influencing, selling, because it's not everybody likes the word selling, so I like to say influencing a decision. What are some of those behaviors that people can adopt to just be better at influencing decisions?
Sure. Well, my catch cry in the sales space is if you think selling is about or sales is about selling, you're actually doing it wrong. And, so first thing that we need to shift is the mindset. I'm not actually selling you anything. I'm just helping you buy what you need. That's the first rule. Once you change your mindset about, and corporations and businesses are actually silly when they start imposing all these crazy sales targets on people because then people feel obliged to sell. If they took the pressure off and helped them facilitate a purchase, all of a sudden they'll sell more anyway.
Absolutely.
So the first thing to do is get your mindset right. And that involves understanding that for every sale, there is an equal and more important purchase that is taking place. And so I might have the world's best sales strategy, and I've got a pretty good one, I might add, but the only reason my sales strategy works is because it is actually aligned with the steps that a customer goes through in order to purchase something. And now, in terms of influence, the things that will influence a person to purchase, there are 5 key influences. You know, the first thing that will get somebody to spend money is it going to save or make me money? Right, so often people are hunting for either, you know, a money-making addition to their world or a saving of some description. So that's a key influencer. A second one is time and convenience. Will this thing that I'm about to purchase either save me time or be more convenient for me? A third one is feel good. Will I feel good in myself if I spend this money? Is it a reward, for example, for me? The fourth one is peace of mind. I mentioned I have 8 kids, all boys. They're out a lot. I have to keep them very well occupied. All of the ones who are away from home carry a mobile phone on them. Why? Well, it's not going to save me or make me money. It is convenient because if I need to get to them in a hurry, I can. But the real one for me is it's not about feel good, which is the third. It's actually about peace of mind. I know that if they get into trouble, they can get to me, and that's important to me. And so that's, you know, led to the decision to actually purchase them all phones, right? And the fifth one is actually status. And, you know, I don't know if you've met a brand name junkie. The ones who really love, you know, they don't go outside without their Prada or their you know, Calvin Klein. They are very big on brand names. What leads those people to purchase, apart from the obvious quality of the high-end items, it's actually the status associated with it. So their status is the fifth. So those 5 again: save, make money, save time or increase convenience, peace of mind, feel good, or status. So if you think about those are the 5 kind of primary influences or persuaders, we could call them, and then have a look at the customer that you're dealing with, all of a sudden it's not too hard to figure out how do you need to position what you're offering to this person, because you can ask them questions. So what is it that you really need this for? And they'll tell you. And you can very quickly glean from their response which of those 5 are at play. And it might be 2 or 3 of them, yeah, there's a little example for you.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Did you get all of that? It just went dead for a second.
Yeah, that's okay. You were saying that here's a little example, and then that was all I heard.
Okay. So the other tip that I've got is to actually think about their or learn about their thinking preferences. I'm not sure if anyone else has spoken on that particular topic, but you know, in life there are a whole raft of profiling tools that you can apply in a sales or business development type arena. You know, there are personality profiles like Myers-Briggs and so on, and personality at the broadest level is a set of labels that is put on a set of behaviors to describe a person in the world. So if you think about that, you know, Myers-Briggs is based loosely on the work of Carl Jung, a very famous psychologist, and it's a really great way of understanding how the rest of the world views me. And most people have done a Myers-Briggs or an MBTI at some stage in their lives. But before that, you've got the behaviors, and then you've got the profiles like DISC, D-I-S-C, which is a behavioral profile. which looks at, in particular, is this person going to be a good fit for a job or not? But preceding behavior comes thinking. And you remember right at the beginning of our conversation, I'm really fascinated by thinking. So I like to look at tools that can help me change the way people think. And one of the most effective ways of doing that is with a tool I've come across called the Huffman Brain Dominance Instrument, or the HBDI, and the whole brain model. And that provides a really powerful framework for, first of all, understanding how I think, which leads to my behavior and therefore the interpretation of that behavior, my personality out in the world. And if you think about the stereotypes in the world, it's quite easy to start picking how somebody's thinking and therefore what they're going to want to hear from me. And I guess my biggest tip here is most of us present information to other people based on the way we would like to receive it. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What we really need to do if we want to be serious about this is stop ourselves from shooting from the hip, as it were, and saying, hey, well, I think this is important, so you should too, and stop and think about who am I dealing with here? So, for example, if you were dealing with somebody in financial services, maybe a CFO or, a financial officer of some description, it's pretty quick to figure out what sort of things are they going to be interested in. Well, it's going to be things like the bottom line and the net profit and return on investment. And the way they speak tends to be very specific as well. It's short, sharp, clip to the point, cut to the chase. What's it going to cost me? Get to the bottom line. And I don't know if you've ever come across people in the world like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
They are the facts and figures people, and they are, and I mean always, right, because they have a fact to back it up. That's what we would call in the Huffman whole brain model an A quadrant person or a blue quadrant person who likes facts and figures. So if I'm selling to that person, I would have to change the way I present in order to match their requirements. What do you think that blue person's favorite objection would be? Any guesses?
The blue person, the facts and figures?
Yep.
What their blueprint would be? Is that what you said?
What their favorite objection?
Oh, what their favorite objection would be? Oh,
facts and figures.
Facts
it's
and
too,
figures.
Too expensive.
Too much time?
Or too much time. Yep. Usually, though, you find them, objecting to the price because they're always.
That's what I was going to say. The money. Yeah, the money.
The money issue.
Yeah.
Always the money.
Yeah.
The next quadrant is described as green, and it's all process oriented, and these are the very methodical people who, it's A, then B, and then C, and they speak in a very kind of well thought out and structured tonality, and the words that they use are very process oriented. So if you can just take me through this process step by step by step, I'll understand it, and then I'll feel comfortable to buy. They always speak with a very well-mannered tone. And again, if I was selling to this person, I'd need to customize my delivery slightly more so that I make sure I cover all the bases one after the other. Because if I jump ahead, which I'm likely to do because I'm a very strong right brain-oriented person, I bounce around a lot, I'll lose them. Yeah. So I might go A, E, B, Z. And they're saying, what happened to C? You with me?
Yes.
Where's C? And they're still looking for C while I'm already at the finish line, right?
Yes.
So the blue and the green, they are more oriented to the left brain function. So logical, analytical process and, systems. Then on the right-hand side of the model, because it is a whole brain model, there's the red quadrant, which is all to do with people and having an experience. And, if you're dealing with somebody in the red quadrant, you'll know because they'll give you a very warm double-handed handshake probably. How are you today? And they'll really look you in the eye and you know they're genuinely interested. And you probably met someone like this who remembers all the details of your extended family. And how's Aunt Betsy doing with that broken foot that you mentioned last time? You know, they'll remember the name of your dog because this is familial referencing, right? And so again, if you were dealing with someone like that, well, you'd have to change the way you deliver to make sure you cover the niceties. So how are you? Get the social things happening first. Otherwise, they will feel that you don't value them as an individual, which will influence them negatively towards the sale.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, and then the final quadrant, the yellow quadrant, is where I sit most of the time, and that's the creative, innovative space where it's slightly larger than life. And what they're really looking for is the latest, the greatest, the fastest, the best, the conceptual. And so these people tend to speak really, really fast and they bounce around and they kind of, you know, broken ideas and thoughts and it's a bit scattered and, oh yeah, and the other day I was on, oh, but then, you know, that person who they never speak in whole sentences, it's always broken. What's really happening there is their mind is filled with imagery and they're trying to describe the images in their mind, but the speech is too slow to keep up, which is why it comes out as broken speech. So again, if you've got someone like that, what you need to do is paint them a big picture. So when you've got this, this is how it's going to be. Let them get excited in themselves about the picture that you're painting. So that's a little bit of detail around one of the techniques I use, which is the whole brain model, which is particularly useful in reading other people.
Wow, yeah, that is quite interesting, and it makes it so much easier to communicate with people and to get your ideas across to them when you understand who it is that you're dealing with. But so many people miss that they can actually work on their communication. Like people just think, oh, I can't get along with so-and-so. It's just because you don't understand them.
And what they find, if we go back to that whole brain model for a second, is there's vertical neurology in the brain, left and right. There's horizontal neurology in the brain, but guess what? There is no diagonal neurology. And so that means it's always the bean counters, blue quadrant, at war with HR and the people, the unions, red quadrant. It's always the creatives, yellow brain, entrepreneurs, rule breakers, at war with policy, procedure, integration, green quadrant. So it's not that we mean to upset each other. And you know, the fascinating thing from a communication perspective is that each of the quadrants actually has a unique vocabulary that they tend to use. And so again, once you get skilled in this model, you can actually hear in the words that people are using where their thinking process is at. And then instantly, you've got an opportunity to actually change the way you deliver the message.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I love that. You just made me have tingles all over my body because I'm just like, wow, that is so just amazing information. It really is.
It's really profound, and yet we all leave clues all the time.
Yes.
Even, you know, the way I organize a desk. So shall we just unpack one person, a classic stereotype? You know, let's go with that blue quadrant person, and let's hypothesize that we're dealing with them in a business sense.
Let's do it.
Okay. So if they were in corporate land, for example, would they be wearing a suit or no suit?
They would wear a suit.
Absolutely. What color suit do you think?
Probably plain color, black.
Plain, dark, black or navy, probably.
Yeah.
Tie or no tie?
Sloppy, maybe a tie, maybe not, probably not.
Yeah. If they're real blue, hard line blue, they'd be tie. Probably tie. And they'll have cufflinks because, you know, they're a status symbol. And it won't be any cufflink.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. So I was thinking about something else. Not sloppily. I just meant like a but anyways, go ahead. Yes.
Yep. And you know, what would their desk look like if you walked into their office?
Probably very organized.
Very organized, neat, tidy, minimalist,
Yeah.
probably the latest gadgets because they're efficient.
Yeah.
And, you know, how do they speak? Well, I demonstrated that before. It's short, sharp, cut to the point. Yep, what do you want? Cut to the chase. Haven't got all day. Don't have time for the warm, fuzzy stuff. Got a business to run here, right? And, you know, what's on the wall behind them when you walk in? You look up on the wall and there's their pedigree, right? There's their, you know, their accounting degree and their this degree and that and what have you, right? So this is who you're dealing with when you enter the office.
Right.
So, you know, and their favorite objection, obviously, the bottom line. So we all know someone like that, right? If you think about it, you know somebody who's always got a fact up their sleeve and they're always right and they can always prove a point and they argue very logically. And, you know, those clues are being left behind all the time, from the way we dress, you know, even the shoes. You would expect nothing but a high-polished black shoe on this person with the navy suit. You'd expect a crew cut, you know, a really neat and tidy haircut. And so all of these clues are in our visual field all the time, but we're just not skilled at reading them. And so once we get skilled at reading them, we can actually then find as much richness in a person's individuality as we've just spent 5 minutes unpacking. We can actually see that in someone walking through the door, which completely changes the way I think about how I'm going to communicate with this person.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah. And that does. It makes all the difference in the world when you can just, you know, when you can instantly understand, okay, this is who I'm dealing with, and I need to adjust myself, or just, I know how to direct, you know, the conversation so that it goes a proper way. I have improved so much on my communication just by becoming aware of the little clues, like how you just said, of the different types of people. And even just with you, you know, just explaining this, you're making me even more aware, and it's just like, wow, like, yeah, that makes total sense. It just makes a lot of sense. So, absolutely. And so, whenever, how can, let me move on to kind of a different question that I had. How can somebody achieve more, increase productivity with less effort? How can they figure out kind of how to do that?
Great question. You know, there are a lot of people I speak with who say, you know, I couldn't work any harder if I tried, and yet I'm still not getting ahead. What is that? Why aren't they millionaires? They work a 16, 18-hour day. And, you know, when it comes to, this particular question of increasing productivity with less effort, well, there are a couple of areas we need to look at. And one of them is really around prioritization. And what we find is you can be super, super busy all day from dawn till dusk, but unless you're being busy on the right things, you're not going to make any headway. And so, there's a very famous prioritization model that was put together by Stephen Covey years and years ago, really well famous, and it's the urgent important quadrants. Are you familiar with that one? So if you draw a four quadrant grid, so high and low, and on one axis you've got urgent, and on the other axis you've got important. If something is both urgent and important, we would call that quadrant 1, and that's firefighting. And a lot of us, particularly, the 18-hour day people, they are operating a huge chunk of their lives putting out fires. Now, these are urgent, important things. Has to be done today. Can't go home. Just got to keep on it until it's done, right? This is firefighting.
Right.
And most of us have experienced a fair bit of that in our lives. And so, and it's interesting because I used to be a little bit like that, but, with 8 kids now and business to run, my wife has taught me everything I know about time management, right? She is the queen of, oh yeah.
Oh my gosh,
wife. She is the most phenomenal woman. Yeah. all pay homage now, bow and
Oh my God.
scrape and grovel as I do.
Amazing woman.
But she is an incredible time management person, and she has what I describe as the ultimate, reality checker. She's a reality checker guru. She'll take a look at a sequence of events that's on the horizon and say, that's not necessary, that's not necessary, that's not necessary, that's not necessary. And, there was a research paper that came out a couple of years ago, and it's probably 3 years old now in Australia. But even 3 years ago, in the business world, managers were saying they were spending 60% of their day in meetings. But they've also got a full 8-hour day of work to get through as well. So when does that work get done? 60% of their 8 hours is actually spent in meetings. Well, the second stat is how many hours do you work a week? And most managers are claiming to work 60 to 70 hours. Why? Because they've spent, 60% of their day in meetings. They've now got to work back late in order to get the workflow done. And so, using this urgent and important prioritization process, you can then decide, well, do I actually have to be in that meeting or not? So quadrant 1 is firefighting, and we all know about that because it bites us when we haven't done our quadrant 2, which is it's important, but it's not yet urgent. Does that make sense? So, things like, I notice on your video blog, you often are out doing a morning walk. Why is that important to you? What does that do for you?
Oh, it does. It just, everything. It just gets me into a very calm, peaceful state of mind.
Right, but if you miss your morning walk today and you miss it tomorrow, what state of mind are you going to be in the day after that?
There's going to be definitely not as peaceful. It's going to be sluggish. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you know that time, which is important for you, it's not urgent. You don't urgently have to get up and go out for a walk until such time as you're now sluggish and you're feeling, down, or you don't have the energy or motivation to get up in the morning, which kind of happens if you don't get that regular quality, Q2, which we call quality time. So, and what are the sorts of things that go into Q2? Well, it is things related to your health. We all know we should exercise in order to be well, but it's not until you miss it that you actually notice that it's gone. If you're spending all of your life in quadrant 1, firefighting, you miss out on all the good stuff, the Q2 stuff. And so, it's about prioritizing then, when am I going to fit in a little bit of quadrant 2, a little bit of that quality time, which often is me time or family time or relationship time. These are important things that if you miss it for a day, well, no biggie. If you miss it for a couple of days, well, it's starting to itch. If you miss it for a month, whoa, what's happened to your relationship? What's happened to your health? What's happened to, you fill in the blank.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so that's quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. That's on the importance scale, right? High importance, urgent versus not urgent. Then you go into the next two quadrants, the quadrant 3 and the quadrant 4. Quadrant 3 is where it seems urgent, but it's actually not important. And we call that distraction. Do you remember me saying, most of us are really busy most of the time? Well, what are you busy on? If you actually had a look at your diary and wrote down, how much time you spent doing, my wife has a terminology she applies to me sometimes, which is you've gone down a rabbit warren. It was a 5-minute job, but I got so engrossed in it, I disappeared for 2 hours. And I don't notice because it's so intrinsically interesting for me to go down the rabbit warren. I'm lost. So in terms of productivity, I've been distracted, and the distractions always seem to be timeless. They don't seem to have a time frame on them. So, going and spending time on Facebook. Have you ever noticed that if you go onto Facebook, for example, you can chew up half an hour before you even know it? How did that happen? I just went on to check that one message and it's gone. That is an example of a productivity loss as a result of distraction. It seems urgent because I got the pop-up, Somebody said something and I thought, oh, I'd better go and have a look at that. It's urgent. It's just happened. But in terms of importance, if you didn't get to that message until next week, would it really change your world? Answer, nope.
No.
So that's a quadrant 3, which is distraction. Then you've got quadrant 4, which is just blatant time wasting, which is sitting down and playing video games or something like that, where we're intentionally avoiding, participating in quadrant 4. So it's not urgent and it's not important. Question, what the hell are you doing there?
Exactly. Yeah. No, and it's easy to get stuck in that, and it only takes a few days of getting off track and some inconsistency, and you can kind of just be like, you don't even know how to jump back on. You're like, how do I get back on the wagon?
Hey, did you ever see that movie City Slickers with Jack Palance?
City Slickers? It's a long time ago. I don't remember anything.
Ages, like 10 years ago. There's this one line in there where the old cowboy's trying to educate the city slicker about the meaning of life. And he says, I've discovered the meaning of life, and he holds up one finger. And the city slicker's going, what does that mean? What does that mean? And at the end of the movie, you get the punchline where the one finger means focus on one thing at a time and do it well. Okay, and so again, often what we find is people get distracted so much, and there's new neuroscience research out that shows it takes 5 to 6 minutes for your brain to get into gear and into flow for a task. Now, how often does your email pop up?
Oh gosh, often.
It's like
often.
Every minute or every 2 minutes.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, I've gotten it more control because my assistant deals with a lot of it, but every 30 minutes, hour or so, hour or two.
Yeah. So what we find from a productivity point of view is if you program your Outlook to actually only clear emails every half hour, and then you dedicate the first 10 minutes of every half-hour block to clearing emails, that gives you then a block of 20 minutes, which is optimal, to be specifically focused on one task. And have you ever noticed that if you start work after hours, you can get a whole or half a day's work done in an hour? Why? Because there are no distractions. And so in terms of increasing productivity for minimizing effort, just shutting down your Q3, your distractions, is huge. And there's one other thought I'd like to share with everyone today on that, and that's the Kaizen principle. And I'll spell that for you. It's K-A-I-Z-E-N, Kaizen. And this is the productivity philosophy that revolutionized the Japanese automotive trade. And the recipe is really simple. It's 1% performance improvement a day. Now, if I were to say to you, you have to improve your performance by 100%, what would you say to me?
By 100%?
100%. I need 100% performance improvement and I want it now. Typical sales manager.
I'll be like, okay, I'm going to try, but I don't know if 100%. I would give my all.
But what's the likelihood of success? I mean, it's minimal, right?
But minimal, yes. But yeah, so it's a process, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if I said to you, what does 1% performance improvement look like today?
No, go ahead.
It's just a small baby step, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I sometimes use the metaphor of a chain smoker. If I were to say to a chain smoker, you've got to give up cold turkey, is that easy or hard?
Hard.
I say, it's hard, right? Whereas if I said to you, how often do you currently have a cigarette? And the person might say, well, I have one every hour. Okay, so what does a 1% performance improvement look like on that? Well, let's say it's 1 minute. It's a little bit less than that, but for argument's sake, let's say 1 minute is 1%. If I said to you, every day I want you to increase the gap by 1%. So today I'm 1 an hour. Tomorrow I'm 1 an hour and 1 minute. The day after I'm 1 hour and 2 minutes. and 3 minutes and 4 minutes and so on. Because the change is so small, it's actually easy to accommodate. The only trick is you must make sure that you don't slip back. But, in 60 days, you're now 1 every 2 hours. In, 100 days, you're 1 every 2.5 hours. And so, small incremental change doesn't require effort. It just requires focus. Does that make sense?
It does.
And so the answer to your question is, if you want to increase your productivity, start searching for the 1%. My wife and I live by this. We challenge each other every day. What's your 1% today? What's your 1%? Because, with the portfolio that we manage, 8 kids, big house, massive food bills, transportation issues, kids in school, whole 9 yards, right? As well as running, we've got online businesses, we've got face-to-face businesses, we've got lots of stuff going on. We don't have hours and hours to dedicate anymore to, improving our productivity. All we can find every day is a 1%. And so we live by that. What's your 1% today? And if there was a message out of my talk today that people could take away, grab a hold of that one. Search for the 1% performance improvement in your communication, in your business, in your communication with yourself and your partner. It's such a small incremental change, but in 100 days, you've achieved 100% performance improvement.
That is absolutely amazing. I love that. You guys are
you
so
like that?
smart, you and your wife.
Oh, I learned everything from the missus. She's fantastic.
That's quite the power couple you two are. That's amazing. So, so for my last question here before we wrap up, so through language and powerful communication skills, obviously people can change and enhance their lives in ways that they could not imagine. Why don't more people implement these methods for achieving more when they say they want to but never do? What is stopping people from adopting everything that we just talked about today?
One word: themselves. Nelson Mandela, when they were faced with the abolishment of apartheid in South Africa, he had a very famous speech. I'd encourage you to all look it up. And I can't remember the exact wording, but it goes something like this. We're actually not afraid of failure. We're afraid of success. And, if you say to somebody, okay, if you could have everything that you've dreamed of right now, would you take it? And you see people look at you and they go blank because they can't actually allow themselves to dare the thought that they might actually be able to have it. And that's a real sad indictment on our cultures, that we are so conditioned to being drones in the workforce where our destiny is at somebody else's control that we very rarely permit ourselves to dream of success. And so, it's fear. Fear comes from not knowing. Have you noticed that? What you're afraid of is stuff that you don't know. If I'm an opera singer on stage and I've got fear, it's because I don't know my music well enough, or I don't know my technique well enough to ensure that I can sing with confidence. You can apply that metaphor to any circumstance. As children, we're not actually afraid of darkness. What are we afraid of? What I don't know might be in the darkness. If I'm swimming in the ocean, it's not water I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of what might be lurking beneath the surface that I can't see. We tend to be afraid of things we don't know. And if you invite people to tell you what their definition of success is, guess what? Most people have no idea. They've never permitted themselves to think about, well, what does my definition of success look like? How would I know if I was? Define it. I run some really powerful workshops around goal setting for people, because without a goal, as the Chinese say in their old proverbs, if you don't know where you're going, any road will do. Unfortunately, somebody else will probably dictate which road you should be on, and that means you're actually serving their cause, not your own.
Absolutely.
So for my money, if you can set yourself a personal goal and know what that sounds like, what that feels like, if you dream forward a couple of years, what you want to have in your life, what's the relationship you want going to be like? What sort of person would you be with when you're successful? How much money would you like to earn? If you had the money that you wanted to earn, what would that give you? Define it. Spell it out for yourself so that you and your unconscious minds know what to create. And then, once you know what it is that you're looking for, you can ask yourself a really direct and simple question. Is this next decision going to take me closer to my goal or further away? Now, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to answer that. Right? It's a really simple gut response. Is this getting me closer or not? And if you don't know but you want to give it a go, well, just know that it's an experiment and give it a whirl. But, there's no harm in trying. The famous Edison quote. Somebody asked him, how many times did you fail before you created a light bulb that worked? And he said, yeah, I've not failed. I've found 999 ways that light bulbs don't work, but I'm looking for the one that it does. It's a really profound kind of statement. What are you searching for?
Yeah.
Give yourself permission to try, because if you don't, guess what? Ain't nothing going to change.
Absolutely not. No, that is awesome. Yes. I thank you so much, Lindsey, for all of your information, your wisdom, your insight. You have just been a pleasure and a joy to be with on this evening and morning for you.
Yeah.
So I just appreciate you so much. So before we wrap all this up, where can people find you? How can they work with you? How can they track you down? And
great question.
And get connected with Lindsey Marshall.
Yep. The easiest way of finding me is through a brand new website that's just being launched called thinkingtools.com.au. thinkingtools.com.au. And on there you'll find links to all of the different technology. There's even some free downloads for people just to get them, a sample of some of the things that we've been talking about, because my philosophy is the more people who are empowered to actually change their lives, the better the world will be. So if they go to thinkingtools.com.au, they will find a cross-section of the tools that I have at my disposal and that can assist people. There's some online stuff that people can do remotely. I also offer coaching programs one-on-one, and obviously, it might be a little difficult to do the face-to-face stuff, but I do that as well. So, and there are links on that site to all my other ventures as well, which is, I'll let that be a surprise for people.
Absolutely, yes, and we'll provide all of that at the end on your page. But thank you so much. This has just been absolutely beautiful. And to everyone listening, we thank you very much. And until next time, have a wonderful day, evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
The moderator has left the conference. The conference is now completed. Goodbye. Welcome to the conference. Please enter the conference ID, followed by the pound key. Thank you. Guest ID accepted.